Hey guys, tonight we're slipping under the covers of history, literally. You're bundled in thick wool, the hearth is burning low, and yet your toes are still suspiciously frozen. It's the dead of winter in 18th century England, and let's just say insulation hasn't quite caught on yet. The windows rattle, the floorboards groan, and the wind howls like a disgruntled ghost who got kicked out of the pub too early. Welcome to bedtime in the Georgian era. You're in a typical upper-middle-class home, not quite aristocratic splendor, but still a cut above peasantry. The bedroom is drafty and smells faintly of peat and lavender sachets. Heavy drapes attempt to block the chill, but it seeps in anyway, curling around your ankles like an unwelcome cat. And that massive four-poster bed? Impressive, sure, but it might as well be a refrigerated coffin once you slide between the sheets. This is where the age-old quest for bedtime warmth takes a practical, albeit slightly hazardous, turn. A servant, probably named something endearing like Mabel or Dot, enters carrying a brass bed warmer. It's a shallow, circular pan with a hinged lid and a long wooden handle, and it contains smoldering coals. You watch as she slides it between the sheets with the grace of someone who's singed a duvet or two in her day. As cozy as the name sounds, these bed warmers were essentially medieval flamethrowers in disguise. If the coals weren't wrapped properly, the resulting burns could range from mild to mattress ruining. But let's face it, you're desperate. Cold feet were not just a minor annoyance in this era, they were practically a medical condition. Sometimes people would stuff hot bricks into socks or wrap up heated stones in rags. The real innovators? They dabbled with boiling potatoes. Yes, entire sacks of them, nature's space heater. If you accidentally fell asleep cuddling a steaming root vegetable, you weren't alone. Of course, this was also the golden age of peculiar remedies. The belief that warmth equaled wellness led to beds being viewed as not just sleeping quarters but as full-body treatment zones. Some folks slept with hot pigs under the covers. Others swore by wrapping themselves in bear pelts. One daring soul in Bath reportedly slept with bottles of gin for warmth, empty by morning, naturally. Historians still argue whether these practices were driven more by necessity or superstition. Was it comfort or folk medicine? Or just a society not yet blessed with the miracle of central heating? Meanwhile, you, the time-traveling observer, try not to laugh as someone drags a fireplace ember into a metal tin and calls it innovation. It's quaint, it's chaotic, and it's about as safe as strapping a candle to your forehead. Still, as the embers glow and the room dims, there's something oddly charming about it all. This clunky brass pan, hissing gently under your quilts, represents more than just heat. It's a gesture of care, someone took the time to warm your bed, even if they nearly set it ablaze in the process. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, why not post your location and local time in the comments? I'd love to know where and when you're tuning in. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As you drift in your Georgian mattress, counting creaks in the rafters, remember, even before electricity, humans were remarkably persistent in their pursuit of bedtime comfort. And the story, dear listener, is only just heating up. You wake, or maybe you never quite fell asleep, to the sound of scuttling footsteps and a low metallic clank. It's still dark out, but the household is already stirring. Outside your thick curtains, the wind drums a steady rhythm against the glass. And just there, near the fireplace, you spot Mabel again, the ever-patient chambermaid, stooped over a pile of glowing embers. She's preparing what might be the most dangerous bedtime ritual of all time, filling the bed warmer. She pinches a hot coal delicately with a pair of iron tongs, as if plucking a strawberry off a thorn bush, and nestles it inside the brass pan. You watch her wrap it tightly in rags, a modest attempt to keep it from igniting the bedsheets. She clamps the lid shut and gives it a practiced shake. That sound, like coins in a collection plate, means bedtime is ready. The routine is familiar now. She slides the sizzling disc under the blankets, sweeping it methodically back and forth to heat the sheets. In wealthier homes, the bed warmer might be preheated near the hearth, but not here. Mabel is saving time. And maybe lives. The smell is unmistakable, a faint metallic tang mixed with smoldering wool. It's oddly comforting. That is, until you remember a less fortunate cousin once scorched an entire feather mattress by forgetting to check for residual flame. Bed warmers weren't just brass pans. In Italy, ceramic jars filled with ash and coals were preferred, less metal, more insulation. In France, they experimented with pans lined in soapstone. Each country had its own flair for pre-sleep heating torture devices, as you now mentally classify them. Still, the basic formula remained the same: apply something hot, hope for the best, and pray your night ends in warmth rather than fire. One curious fact that might warm your heart, and not your bed sheets, is that sometimes, bed warmers were filled with dried cherry pits. They held heat surprisingly well, and didn't risk spontaneous combustion. Plus, they smelled delightful when toasted. Think of them as the historical equivalent of a lavender-scented heating pad, minus the battery. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of coal-based bed warmers was a sign of progress or a glaring oversight in fire safety. After all, the same society that required chamber pots under the bed thought it was fine to tuck smoldering materials next to your nightgown. The average house fire in 18th century London could be traced to any number of culprits: candles, cooking, open flames, but bed warmers ranked suspiciously high in eyewitness accounts. One pamphlet from 1792 warned, "Take ye care with thy warming pan, lest thy bed become thy pyre." Not the most soothing lullaby. And then there were the brave few who decided to forego the pan entirely. You've probably seen them in period dramas, servants placing a shovel full of glowing embers directly under the bed. Yes, beneath the wooden, flammable bed frame. It's like trusting a raccoon to guard your sandwich, theoretically possible, but ill-advised. As you observe Mabel's final pass under the sheets, you can't help but marvel at the balance between necessity and danger. The heat is fleeting, maybe 30 minutes of toasty bliss before the mattress returns to its usual icy state, but those 30 minutes were everything on a frostbitten night. And here's a lovely twist: some families would use the warmer in more ways than one. After prepping the bed, it might double as a foot warmer in church, or even a makeshift hand dryer after a cold walk. You picture a row of pious old women nodding off during a sermon, their feet blissfully toasting in secret under the pews. There's something charming about how multipurpose everything had to be. Nothing was just one thing. A bed warmer could be a heater, a foot dryer, a weapon in a domestic dispute, yes, it happened, and an excuse to bond with your servant over scorch marks. So here you lie, the embers still faintly crackling beneath your toes, drifting between admiration and disbelief. It's not glamorous, but it's warm, for now. And as you fade into the muffled quiet of early morning, the story moves on, like the slow hiss of coal against brass. You awaken, or maybe just shift slightly, to the smell of burnt linen and the distinct ting of metal tools clattering onto a wooden bench. Gone is the cozy Georgian bedroom. You now find yourself in a cluttered workshop that smells of singed fabric, candle wax, and a worrying amount of burnt hair. It's the early 1800s, and you've stumbled into the lair of the mad tinkerers, eccentric inventors desperate to create something better, something safer, something electric. But here's the catch: electricity is still more magic trick than miracle. It's barely out of the parlor demonstration stage, and certainly not ready for your grandmother's quilts. Yet that hasn't stopped a motley crew of mustachioed gentlemen in soot-stained aprons from trying. One of them, let's call him Cyril, gestures excitedly toward a metal bed frame wired to a series of glass Leyden jars and strange copper coils. He calls it the somnovoltaic comfort device. You call it a lawsuit waiting to happen. The idea is simple: use safe, mild currents to provide warmth instead of flame. The execution, however, is anything but simple. Wires snake under the mattress like mechanical worms, and a single wrong twist of the crank sends a jolt through the feather bed that could wake the dead, or at least singe their socks off. You watch Cyril tinker as he explains his dream, a future where you no longer need dangerous coal pans or damp stone bottles, but instead can fall asleep on a mattress that gently warms itself with the healing forces of nature's lightning. His words, not yours. Historians still argue whether any of these devices were ever actually safe enough to be used regularly. Surviving documents mention frequent burns, sparking fabrics, and the unsettling hum of stored energy leaking through metal springs. One letter from a skeptical landlady in Derbyshire describes her tenant's mattress as buzzing like a devil's harp. Despite all odds, these inventors persist. The allure of harnessing electricity for warmth is too tempting. Remember, this is also the age of galvanism, when people tried to reanimate frogs and corpses with electrical current. A cozy mattress is, by comparison, a fairly tame goal. But that didn't stop things from going terribly, wonderfully wrong. One fringe inventor, you'll enjoy this, attempted to combine a music box with his warming wires. The theory was that soft lullabies would play as the bed reached optimum temperature. The result? His cat was electrocuted mid-waltz. The invention was quietly shelved. As you wander the workshop, you notice diagrams scrawled on parchment, labeled with terms like thermoradiance coil and sleep node activation. You suspect these are just impressive-sounding words for a hot wire wrapped in wool, but you appreciate the showmanship. There's even a prototype fitted into a rocking cradle, which sends a low hum through the slats. It's meant for infants. You recoil slightly. The idea of strapping an electrical experiment to a baby is bold. And yet, you can't help but admire their passion. These were people staring into the dim candlelit night and dreaming of a future filled with soft, automatic warmth. Of course, they had no concept of grounded wires or voltage regulation. They were trying to invent a toaster before discovering the plug. Still, progress is messy. And at least they weren't setting their sheets on fire anymore, just mildly electrocuting themselves. That's growth, right? Before you leave, Cyril hands you a pamphlet. It's hand-drawn, featuring a crude sketch of his comfort coil bed system, boasting no flames. No fumes. Just the gentle touch of static serenity. You fold it carefully, unsure whether to laugh or applaud. And with that, you step out into the foggy street, the workshop humming softly behind you, one step closer to the modern electric blanket, but still many shocking mishaps away. You follow the crackling sound of static and find yourself in yet another dim room, this one plastered in peeling floral wallpaper and smelling faintly of liniment. It's the 1840s, and you're witnessing the golden age of electrotherapy, a time when people genuinely believed mild electric shocks could fix nearly anything: baldness, gout, hysteria, even, perhaps, a particularly moody disposition brought on by cold toes. Tonight's contraption is a curious little thing, a squat wooden box with two brass knobs and something that looks suspiciously like a hand-cranked meat grinder. This isn't a bed warmer exactly, but the theory is similar: generate electric current, send it through your body, feel better. The instructions printed in fading script suggest it should also encourage restful sleep through constitutional stimulation. Whatever that means. You watch as a gentleman named Mr. Ellington, who looks like he hasn't slept since the last monarch died, sits upright in bed and dutifully straps the electrodes to his ankles. He gives the crank a few slow turns, and suddenly his legs twitch. He smiles. It tickles the frostbite, he says, as though that's reassuring. These early electrotherapy kits were all the rage among the wealthy and the desperate. They were sold in velvet-lined boxes, often with illustrations of serene women reclining under vaguely Greco-Roman drapes while bolts of healing energy flowed through their limbs. The reality was a little more jerky. You sit beside Mr. Ellington as he cranks steadily, the room lit by a single whale oil lamp. He explains that the device doesn't just warm his feet, it also improves his mood, his digestion, and possibly, though he's not entirely certain, his handwriting. He turns the dial too far, and his entire leg spasms. Ah, he says with the calm of a man in denial, working splendidly. Historians still argue whether these devices were mostly placebo or mildly effective pain relievers. Some did generate enough warmth to take the chill off, though the side effects included muscle cramps and an occasional fainting spell. Yet people clung to them with surprising enthusiasm. Why? Because it beat wrapping your feet in steaming cabbage. You look around and notice a growing market of hybrid devices. Some were marketed as health tonics and bed accessories. Others came bundled with their own mattresses, complete with carefully placed copper thread to distribute current evenly along the spine. You grimace slightly. There's nothing even about that spine-frying setup. One fringe design you'll enjoy imagining, a pillow filled with zinc plates and saltwater-soaked felt. Yes, someone tried to create an electrothermal thinking cap. Its inventor claimed it could warm your thoughts, and your scalp, at the same time. It never caught on. Possibly because it gave one poor librarian a smoking hairline. These odd inventions weren't confined to just parlors and pamphlets. Traveling salesmen hawked them at county fairs. Doctors recommended them to women with nervous exhaustion. And elderly men with stiff joints swore by their ability to thaw the bones before sleep. At one particularly tragic demonstration in Sheffield, a volunteer accidentally connected the device to a brass bed frame. The current traveled through the frame and into the nearby chamber pot, which then exploded. No one was seriously injured, except perhaps their dignity. Still, the belief in electric warmth continued to surge forward, pun fully intended. The concept of using energy rather than fire was beginning to stick. After all, fire burned indiscriminately, but electricity promised control. Theoretically. You lean back, watching Mr. Ellington finally recline, the crank slowing to a stop. He sighs, a faint smile on his lips as he drifts off, feet twitching slightly with residual charge. The room grows quiet. The static fades. The idea that warmth could be summoned from invisible forces, without coals, without flames, feels almost like sorcery. But it's not. It's just science, misused creatively. And though the devices were more zap than snuggle, they set the stage for what would come next, the first true attempt at using electric heat to comfort, rather than jolt, the sleepy soul. You're standing in a cluttered Victorian study now, the walls lined with worn leather tomes and a collection of skulls, some human, some less so. The fireplace crackles in the background, but your attention is on the peculiar figure at the desk. Meet Dr. Tiberius Mott, a man with the mustache of a walrus and the eyes of someone who's tried his own medicine far too many times. Mott believes that cold beds are more than just uncomfortable, they're emotionally dangerous. He's convinced that melancholia, the 19th century version of depression, can be drawn out through warmth applied to the spine, particularly if the warmth is charged with electroauric vibrations. It sounds silly. That's because it is. You observe as Mott demonstrates his latest device, which he lovingly calls the Somnolex frame. It's a bed outfitted with a web of copper wires, wool padding, and what looks like a repurposed telegraph machine bolted onto the footboard. With a flick of a lever, the whole frame gives off a soft buzzing hum, and not the comforting kind. The patient, a volunteer named Mr. Fenton, lies stiffly beneath a mound of itchy blankets as Mott adjusts the dials. "Do you feel the serenity coursing through you?" he asks. Mr. Fenton doesn't respond, his hair is slowly rising with static. This bizarre bed is supposed to vibrate the soul into harmony, drawing out sadness through controlled heat. The Victorian belief in therapeutic electricity wasn't fringe, it was popular, respected, and sometimes deadly. Think of it as self-care with sparks. Historians still argue whether Dr. Mott was ahead of his time or simply unhinged. He kept meticulous records, some of which show slight temperature regulation and subjective mood improvement in patients. Others mention scorched nightshirts and a sensation of internal crackling. Yet his theories attracted interest. At one point, he was invited to speak at the Edinburgh Society for Natural Remedies. His presentation, part lecture, part séance, ended with a live demonstration in which the bed warmer began to smoke and a woman fainted. Applause followed anyway. Victorians had strange standards for success. In an attempt to improve his model, Mott later added tubes filled with mercury, believing the shimmering liquid conducted emotive energy. It also leaked. A lot. One reviewer noted that while the bed offered curiously radiant warmth, it also stained the carpets dreadfully and made the cat violently ill. Mott eventually patented his invention under the name the Lustral Repose Engine, and managed to sell a handful to spas in Bath and one adventurous asylum in Wales. These were marketed not just as warmers, but as full restorative experiences, heat for the body, vibrations for the mind, and if you were lucky, no electrocution. And yet, in the hushed hours of his own bedtime routine, Mott would recline in one of his devices, a look of dreamy satisfaction on his face. He believed. Perhaps that's what made him so compelling, and dangerous. He wasn't selling snake oil, he was sipping it too. You glance again at the humming frame, cords like vines coiled across the quilt, and you wonder, could warmth ever truly mend a broken heart? Mott certainly thought so. You're less convinced, especially as Mr. Fenton twitches softly and a faint wisp of smoke curls upward from the headboard. Still, it's hard not to appreciate the ambition. To take something so primal, cold toes, and link it to the condition of the soul. It's Victorian science at its most theatrical, part faith, part fire hazard. You tiptoe away, leaving Mott to his devices, literally, and step back into the night, your footsteps echoing on cobblestone streets, thinking, maybe don't try this at home. You find yourself ducking into a cramped room filled with clinking tools, angry voices, and the sharp scent of ozone. It's the late 1880s now, and you've wandered straight into a patent war. Two inventors, both red-faced and gesturing wildly with diagrams and burnt extension cords, are accusing each other of stealing designs for an electrically enhanced bed warming apparatus. Their names? Jasper Hensley and Cornelius Bright. And yes, they sound like men who would invent something that nearly catches fire and still call it a triumph. Jasper insists that his model uses a superior coil pattern, zigzagged for optimal warmth distribution. While Cornelius counters with, mine has lower risk of spinal combustion. It's all very technical, until you realize they're basically arguing over which prototype is less likely to roast someone in their sleep. Both models feature copper wiring nestled within layers of wool and silk, connected to hand-cranked induction boxes or, for the ambitious, the newfangled household wall sockets. Problem is, domestic electricity in the 1880s is, let's say temperamental. Flickering voltages, inconsistent power loads, and wires that were often one bad decision away from open flame. Still, there's a growing market for heated bedding, especially in the colder regions of Britain and the northeastern United States. Advertisements boast things like, wake with a smile, not a shiver, and guaranteed to deliver warmth without the soot. You note that none of them mention safety outright. You're shown several patent illustrations, meticulous cross-sections of wool mattresses threaded with coiled nickel wire, all powered by switchboards the size of steamer trunks. One even has a built-in heat regulator, basically a tin box with a thermometer and a dial labeled mild, toasty, and brave. One housewife, interviewed in a Glasgow medical journal, reported that her husband hadn't caught a single cold since using the Electrolux comfort pad, though she adds, he did wake up with eyebrows slightly singed once. Historians still argue whether these devices were genuinely useful or just elaborate hazards wrapped in velvet. While some households swore by their effectiveness, electrical inspectors often swore at them. There were reports of mattress fires, blown fuses, and, in one rather memorable case, a man who was briefly glued to his mattress by melted wool. To make things worse, or perhaps more entertaining, some inventors tried to add fragrance capsules to their designs. One ad claimed, smell the lavender as you warm, but the capsules often burst when overheated, leaving behind not floral serenity, but something closer to scorched soap and panic. Cornelius, ever the dramatist, brings out his prototype and dares Jasper to try it. The bed hums with ominous energy as he flips the switch. There's a low fizz, a brief spark, and, miraculously, it works. The surface warms gently. No smoke. No screaming. Jasper glares, defeated but intrigued. This sort of heated rivalry was common during the dawn of domestic electrification. As people slowly trusted the idea of electric lights, they began considering electric comfort. Heated beds were just one step in a long chain of glowing inventions that included electric toasters, curling irons, and, eventually, blankets. The patent office, by the way, didn't help matters. In 1889 alone, over 40 applications related to electrothermal sleeping aids were filed, many of them near identical. One clerk famously remarked, "If I see one more sketch of a sizzling mattress, I shall resign." Still, despite all this chaos, something important is happening here. You're witnessing the messy birth of modern electric heating. The tinkering, the copying, the competitive bickering, it's all part of the strange, stubborn march toward safer, smarter solutions. As the shouting dies down and the inventors sulk into separate corners of the room, you wonder what future generations will make of these early electric beds. Hopefully, they'll remember the sparks, and not just the metaphorical kind. Now you're seated in a grand, wood-paneled hall, the air thick with the scent of pipe smoke, damp wool, and academic pride. You're at the Royal Academy, no less, a prestigious gathering of inventors, scientists, and the occasional overly confident amateur. Tonight's program: a live demonstration of an electric bed warmer. What could possibly go wrong? The year is 1892, and the world is halfway in love with electricity. The room buzzes with anticipation as engineers will out the demonstration bed, a lavish four-poster, its mattress lined with elegant piping and encased in embroidered silk. If you squint, you can just see the coils woven beneath the surface, glinting like coiled snakes waiting to strike. The inventor is Sir Archibald Cleves, a tall, ruddy man with impressive sideburns and the energy of someone who's drunk 5 cups of tea and 1 jolt of hubris. Behold, he shouts to polite applause, the Thermo Serenity Mk2. He throws a switch with theatrical flair. The mattress hums. A faint glow pulses from within the blankets, and a soft puff of lavender-scented steam escapes from the headboard. It's all going beautifully until the left corner of the bed begins to smolder. Just a little. Nothing alarming, yet. Archibald, to his credit, calmly douses the spot with a cloth. Perfectly normal, he assures the audience. A minor calibration quirk. You suppress a chuckle. The elderly gentleman next to you leans over and whispers, "Last week someone nearly incinerated a footstool demonstrating a kettle." Queen Victoria herself was reportedly invited to attend the event, but declined politely. Her assistant's memo allegedly read, "Her Majesty declines to be barbecued in bed." Understandable. Still, the demonstration continues. Archibald manages to regain control, even inviting a volunteer to lie on the now warm bed. A brave young lad in a stiff collar hops on and declares, rather like sunbathing, but inside. Before yelping as a warm patch hits his leg like a surprise toaster. Historians still argue whether these public exhibitions were genuine research or just glorified sales pitches. In truth, they were both. Scientists were curious. Consumers were cautious. And the press? They were delighted. The next morning's headlines range from "Electric Bed Promises Cozy Future" to "Royal Academy's Sheets Nearly Spark Civil Unrest." Despite the hiccups, these events played an essential role in promoting electric heat as something respectable, not just for parlor tricks or charlatan treatments. The idea of a home filled with electric comfort, lighting, heating, even bedding, was inching closer to reality. You stroll through the aftermath of the event. A steward flaps a towel at the lingering smoke, while Archibald signs pamphlets that read, "Why freeze when you can glow?" A catchy slogan, if not an entirely comforting one. In a side room, you discover the less glamorous prototypes, wire-filled wool pads, scorched linen samples, and a single disastrous attempt at a heated pillow, now banned after someone described the experience as like sleeping with a sunburned hedgehog. Still, it's clear that the electric bed warmer has entered public imagination. It's no longer a laughable oddity, it's the future, albeit one with occasional smoldering. And yes, Archibald did receive a modest grant for his research, which he reportedly spent designing a self-heating dressing gown. The prototype later exploded in a Scottish bathhouse. But we'll save that for another bedtime story. For now, you leave the Royal Academy with a sense of cautious optimism. The crowd may have coughed through a bit of smoke, but no one ran for the exits. Progress, it seems, is warm and slightly singed. You step into the flickering glow of a gas-lit reading room, where a stack of newspapers and a thick air of alarm await. It's the early 1890s, and public sentiment about electric bed warmers is shifting, from cautious curiosity to full-blown panic. The London Gazette screams from the front page. Electric blanket causes wife to spark, husband faints. It's unclear whether the wife sparked metaphorically or literally, but either way, society is scandalized. You sit beside a group of prim women sipping tepid tea and clucking disapprovingly over the headlines. Back in my day, one says, we just boiled a brick and called it progress. Another sighs, why would anyone electrify a mattress? It's like making lightning a bedtime companion. You flipped through more coverage. There's the infamous Manchester incident, where a man reportedly plugged in his Everglow bed insert and woke to find the mattress gently smoldering, and his nightcap singed to his forehead. A cartoon in the Penny Illustrated shows a man rocketing out of bed like a cannonball, sheets trailing like a comet, with the caption, "A warm welcome to the electric age." Tabloid seize on the chaos. Some claim the devices were built by lunatics. Others suggest the warming beds are part of a foreign plot to weaken the British immune system with unnatural warmth. One article warns, dramatically, we may soon forget what it feels like to shiver, and with it, lose our national grit. Historians still argue whether this media frenzy was justified or simply a product of technological anxiety. Electricity was still new, unpredictable, and poorly understood by the public. To many, it wasn't warmth, it was witchcraft with wires. Even politicians jump on the bandwagon. Lord Penberton demands a parliamentary inquiry into reckless bedroom experimentation. In his speech, he refers to one warmed bed as a devil's cradle, capable of roasting a man before he dreams. He is later mocked in satirical cartoons, depicted tucked into bed wearing a suit of armor and holding a lantern. Yet beneath the hysteria, there is a genuine problem: early electric bed warmers do catch fire. Frequently. Insulation is poor, wiring is inconsistent, and most of the designs haven't been tested beyond a few cozy evenings and hopeful testimonials. In fact, a popular consumer guide published in 1893 features a whole chapter titled, "How to Distinguish Between Gentle Heat and Pending Combustion." Manufacturers scramble to repair their image. They rebrand their products with names like Sleep Glow, Thermorestoration Pad, and, most shamelessly, the Heavenly Embrace, now with lower spark risk. They hire actors to demonstrate the devices at county fairs, or publish staged photographs of smiling couples lounging safely in heated beds. You can practically see the singe marks just off frame. A few savvy marketers lean into the absurdity. One ad campaign boasts, "Yes, it's electric. Yes, it works. No, you won't catch fire." Probably. Even so, sales dip. People hesitate. Mistrust simmers. The technology teeters on the edge of obsolescence. And yet, something keeps it alive. Perhaps it's the promise of warmth without smoke, fire, or the elbow grease of a servant. Or perhaps it's sheer stubbornness, the refusal to give up on the dream of cozy automation. Either way, inventors don't stop, and neither do the headlines. You sip your imaginary tea, smile at a particularly outlandish drawing of a man fried to a crisp by his bed, complete with cartoon X's over his eyes, and lean back. Because deep down, you know this isn't the end of the story. The public may be skeptical now, but warmth, real, fire-free warmth, is still out there. Waiting to be perfected. And it's only a few singed mustaches away. The scene changes again, and now you're inside the walnut-paneled office of a marketing executive, circa 1902. There's a peculiar mix of desperation and inspiration in the air, along with the scent of inkwells and cigar smoke. Sales of electric bed warmers have plummeted thanks to what newspapers are now calling the crispy blanket era. So what do you do when people are terrified of your product? You rename it. You observe a group of well-dressed men around a mahogany table, their suspenders stretched to the limit and their patience running thin. One gestures toward a chalkboard bearing a list of rejected product names. The Shocky Sheet. Hot Nap 500. No Fire Nappy Time. They're clearly still workshopping. At last, someone leans forward and speaks the words that will save the product, Thermo Health Enhancer. It's vague. It's scientific. And best of all, it doesn't contain the word electric. The room bursts into relieved applause. This era marks the rebranding of the electric bed warmer into something more therapeutic. Ads no longer show sparking wires or glowing coils. Instead, they feature spa settings, serene ladies wrapped in robes, and lines like, relieve your joints. Rejuvenate your rest. You half expect them to throw in a side of cucumber water. You wander through a bustling department store in London, where these newly named devices are sold alongside facial rollers and tonic waters. A tired-looking clerk demonstrates the Calmo pad to an older gentleman, who watches it heat up with the nervous caution of someone who's read all the headlines. Still, the packaging is convincing. Cream-colored boxes adorned with Greek goddesses and flowing script promise not just comfort, but wellness. Even the instruction manuals begin to sound more like medical advice than engineering guides. One leaflet reads, regulates temperature to suit the constitution and promote optimistic dreaming. You can't help but notice the subtle genius in all of it. The public didn't stop needing warmth, they just needed a new story about how that warmth got to them. One without sparks. Spa resorts take notice. In Germany's Black Forest, guests are now offered therapeutic warming beds filled with mild electrothermal radiation. In Switzerland, an inn boasts that its warming system follows the contours of the spine for supreme alpine comfort. Whether these claims are true is beside the point. People are booking rooms. Even in America, where skepticism runs deep, urban spas and upscale hotels begin offering what they call electro-restorative sleep chambers. You poke your head into one in Chicago. The bed smells like lavender and linseed oil. The mattress is encased in quilted silk and gently warm to the touch. No smoke, no hiss, just a low hum and a bellhop with very reassuring eyebrows. Historians still argue whether this rebranding was brilliant marketing or a clever way to dodge regulation. But one thing's clear, by changing the language, they changed the game. The word electric quietly receded into the background, and the idea of controlled, safe warmth took its place. Of course, some inventors took it too far. One briefly marketed a radiant foot hood, essentially a box you inserted your feet into before bed, powered by an exposed heating element. It was pulled from stores after someone accidentally toasted a slipper into oblivion. But for every failure, there was a growing sense of normalcy. People stopped associating electric warmth with disaster and started viewing it as a modern luxury, like indoor plumbing or collapsible top hats. As you recline on one of the demonstration beds, the warmth spreading evenly across your back, you realize how close this strange little invention is to surviving the public panic phase. All it needed was a new name, a gentler promise, and a few less fires. Now you're standing in the polished interior of Harrods, London's temple of retail decadence, sometime around 1910. Soft music plays from a distant gramophone. Perfume wafts from one corner, polished leather shoes from another. But you're here to witness a very special product launch, the Ever Cozy, the first fully commercialized electric bed warmer designed for the middle and upper classes. Displayed beneath a velvet rope and a strategically placed potted fern, the Ever Cozy gleams like a technological jewel. A handsome young man in a waistcoat stands nearby, dramatically lifting its quilted cover to show curious shoppers the hidden wires inside. Safe as milk, he insists, as he turns a little dial that begins to glow a gentle orange. Comes with 2 heat settings, mild and merrily toasty. The crowd murmurs with cautious delight. Unlike its chaotic predecessors, the ever-cozy looks elegant. It's wrapped in thick wool, lined with silk, and discreetly stitched so that no copper coils or terrifying bolts peek through. There's even a tiny ivory badge that reads "Engineered for Tranquility." A young couple asks if it's guaranteed not to ignite. The salesman laughs and says, "Absolutely not. It's guaranteed not to even frown." They buy two. You flip through the glossy brochure. It features illustrations of dreamy, floating women surrounded by a halo of comfort. One image shows a dapper man reading a newspaper in bed, a steaming teacup beside him, the caption reading, "Warmth, wit, and waking without woe." Historians still argue whether the Ever-Cozy was truly the first successful electric bed warmer or just the best marketed. Several rival models were released in the same year, but Harrods' placement and branding made theirs the darling of the era. Within weeks, orders came from Paris, Vienna, and even Cairo. What made the Ever-Cozy different, besides looking like it hadn't been welded in a barn, was its emphasis on user control. It came with a detachable cord, washable covers, and a newfangled safety fuse that claimed to cut power if temperatures exceeded a comfortable glow. There was even a version with a built-in timer, so the bed would shut off before dawn. Revolutionary stuff, if a bit optimistic given early 20th century wiring. One delighted buyer, writing in the Ladies' Weekly Compendium, claimed the Ever-Cozy cured her chilblains, soothed her nerves, and made her husband marginally more bearable in the mornings. You spot a retired colonel peering suspiciously at the control box. "Does it shock the knees?" he asks. The salesman assures him no, though a cheeky clerk mutters, "Only if you ask it to." The colonel buys one anyway. In the weeks that follow, the Ever-Cozy begins to appear in bedrooms across Europe. A Parisian hotel installs 10. A Norwegian shipping magnate requests 30 for his estate. Rumors spread that a Russian duchess demanded one be sewn into her travel carriage. Naturally, she requested the setting remain on merrily toasty at all times. Of course, there were still the occasional hiccups. One overzealous user reportedly mistook the timer switch for a volume control and left the bed on all night, waking to a mattress that smelled vaguely of roasted almonds. No injuries, just a cautionary tale. But overall, the Ever-Cozy ushers in a new age. Electric warmth moves from experimental oddity to coveted convenience. It becomes a wedding gift, a luxury Christmas present, and, increasingly, a staple for those who no longer wish to wake up with icicles in their mustaches. You lie down on one of the display beds, and for a moment, you could swear you feel the faintest hum beneath you, not mechanical or electric, but the quiet satisfaction of progress finally getting it right. You drift now into the quiet hum of a European night, sometime around the 1920s. The Ever-Cozy has made its way into boudoirs and bedrooms, drawing room catalogs and boarding school trunks. But as you travel between the silky sheets of Parisian apartments and the hand-me-down bedding of American cabins, you notice something curious: not everyone's embracing the warmth. In France, electric bed warmers have become an accessory of flirtation and flair. You find yourself in a high-ceilinged Parisian bedroom where a poet named Lucien lounges under a heated throw, reading Colette aloud to a woman in a lace robe who's far more interested in the warmth than the verse. The device is sleek, the cord hidden beneath a plush velvet spread, the control box shaped like a miniature carriage clock. Lucien offers you a wink. "The future," he says, "is one where we are never cold, or alone." You can't help but admire the style. In this corner of Europe, bed warmers are not just appliances, they're an aesthetic. Manufacturers produce limited edition versions with embroidered casings, mother-of-pearl buttons, and silk toggles. One Paris salon even stages a fashion show where models glide down the runway wearing heated corsets. Across the Atlantic, however, it's a different story. You find yourself in a drafty Iowa farmhouse. The windows rattle. The wallpaper peels. And old Mr. Henriksen squints down at his recently purchased, Electro-Rest bed sheet, with a look of grave suspicion. "Looks like a coiled-up rattler," he mutters. He's not wrong. American adoption of the electric bed warmer is slower. Electricity is still inconsistent in rural areas. Many folks rely on thick quilts, stove-heated bricks, or good old-fashioned stubbornness. Some call the new devices indulgent, even foreign. One editorial in the Springfield Star scoffs, "If your bones can't endure a little frost, perhaps they weren't meant for winter." Historians still argue whether this transatlantic gap was driven by technology, temperament, or just plain pride. What's certain is that Europe, with its dense urban grids and appetite for novelty, embraced the trend faster. Meanwhile, parts of America viewed the electric bed warmer like they might a snooty cat, elegant, suspicious, and probably up to something. But gradually, attitudes shift. War veterans returning from Europe bring tales of miracle bedding. Department stores in Chicago and New York begin selling improved models with better insulation and easier controls. Advertisements soften their pitch, from opulence to practicality. One reads, "Because your mother shouldn't shiver." You see a woman in Detroit examining a box marked Thermoquilt, as reliable as the man you married, but warmer. She buys too. Smart lady. Still, stories of malfunction persist. A rural homemaker in Nebraska writes to the manufacturer claiming her heated blanket caused the family cat to purr aggressively for 3 hours straight before toppling over from overcontentment. The company responds with concern, and a new slogan, "Even the cat approves." In contrast, Japan quietly begins experimenting with its own versions, integrating electric pads into futon systems and boasting superior temperature regulation. They don't make a big fuss about it. Just quiet, efficient warmth. You make a mental note to follow up there in a future nap. Back in Europe, the trend has taken on a life of its own. There's now an electric bed warmer society in Vienna. Their motto: "Heat is not indulgence. It is progress." They meet monthly and exchange tips on wattage optimization and cord concealment. They are surprisingly passionate. You finish the night in a modest London flat, where a family of 4 has finally saved enough for their first electric blanket. They gather around the bed as if it's a new member of the household. The youngest boy pokes it with cautious delight. "It's like sleeping with a dragon," he whispers, "but a nice one." The room is quiet. The air is cold. But beneath the covers, a soft warmth spreads, steady, safe, and earned. You drift into a room thick with the scent of pipe tobacco, new paper, and regulation ink. It's the mid-1930s now, and electric bed warmers have gone from novelty to near household staple, at least in well-to-do homes. But with popularity comes scrutiny, and tonight you find yourself eavesdropping on a public safety committee meeting. Wood-paneled walls echo with voices that range from skeptical to downright theatrical. "We're allowing people," one stern official declares, "to invite electricity into their beds. Right into the sacred domestic realm, next to flammable nightgowns." Another committee member sighs. "We regulate toasters. We regulate hair dryers. Why not the devices that people literally nap on?" They've gathered to debate new fireproofing standards. Turns out, even the fancy, silk-wrapped ever-cozy style models aren't as safe as once thought. Faulty cords, overheating switches, and cheap wool stuffing are still causing accidents. So the conversation now turns to materials: what's safe, what's not, and what sounds convincing in a pamphlet. Enter the hottest topic in the room: asbestos. Yes, asbestos, the miracle fiber of the era. Heat-resistant, widely available, and, tragically, not yet known to be dangerous. You listen as manufacturers lobby enthusiastically for it. "It's non-flammable, gentlemen. Practically immortal." A phrase that will not age well. One pamphlet on display in the room reads, "Lined with asbestos for your safety and serenity." You suppress a cough just reading it. Historians still argue whether this pivot to asbestos lining was born of genuine concern or a marketing arms race. Either way, it quickly becomes industry standard. Electric bedding now boasts fireproof linings, smoke-resistant fabrics, and, perhaps most charmingly, cool touch cords. None of these things are as foolproof as advertised. You visit a factory in Leeds where workers carefully weave fine asbestos thread into electric mattress pads, unaware of the danger. A foreman boasts, "We've reduced singeing by nearly 70%. He beams with pride. You nod, slowly backing away from the pile of glowing coils near the open window. Meanwhile, a rival company in Boston experiments with rubber-coated wiring, attempting to create the first completely waterproof heated blanket. They test it by dunking a corner in a basin while it's on. It promptly short-circuits. The experiment is never repeated. One frustrated inventor unveils a prototype featuring removable heat inserts, metal pouches you heat separately and slide into special quilt pockets. They're safe, yes, but about as cuddly as sleeping on a warm tin can. Still, it becomes a minor hit among safety-conscious retirees in Sweden. In the wake of these discussions, standards begin to shift. Countries propose certifications, safety marks, and even a sniff test. If a heated blanket smells vaguely of burning toast, do not use it. The advice is both useful and oddly specific. Despite the drama, electric bed warmers continue selling. You flip through Better Homes and Bedrooms magazine and spot a photo spread, a couple smiling over their new heat-controlled double mattress, each side with its own setting. The wife's is set to gentle radiance. The husband's, predictably, to molten core. A small box tucked into the article advises, for households with pets, do not leave the unit on unattended. Cats are not certified test subjects. You chuckle, remembering the earlier feline overheat incident. Some lessons take time. And yet, progress marches forward. New fabrics emerge, safer switches develop, and public confidence grows. Electric bed warmers are no longer just gadgets, they're necessities, especially in colder climates and for those with aching joints or aging bones. As you drift off in a dimly lit 1930s bedroom, a faint warmth beneath you, it occurs to you, these safety debates, these overreactions, these weird workarounds, they're all part of how comfort evolves. Trial and error, singe and soothe. And sometimes, asbestos. You awaken now to the distant drone of propellers and the distant clink of tin trays. It's the 1940s, and you're no longer in the quiet comfort of private homes, you're in the middle of a military field hospital, somewhere in the rain-soaked countryside of Europe. The war has changed everything, including how we think about warmth. Here, electric bed warmers aren't luxury items or gimmicky novelties. They're necessities. Inside the tent, rows of wounded soldiers lie beneath thick wool blankets, their faces pale, some trembling. Cold isn't just discomfort, it's a threat. Hypothermia. Infection. Immobility. The nurses move quickly, and one of their tools is a portable, battery-operated bed warmer nicknamed the heat brick. You crouch beside a young soldier whose boots have been cut away, his feet blackened from frostbite. A nurse gently slides a heated pack under his calves. It's wrapped in canvas, padded with wool, and connected to a crude battery pack that hums softly. Primitive, yes. But life-saving. These makeshift heating systems were often cobbled together from whatever could be found, car batteries, salvaged wiring, even electric kettle parts. One field engineer in Italy famously repurposed a tank's dashboard light circuit to create an 8-bed warming array. It lasted 3 days before frying itself, and several cots. Historians still argue whether these wartime contraptions directly influenced post-war consumer models. But many features, like heat zoning and automatic shut-off, first appeared in this very context, not in cozy bedrooms, but in triage tents. You're now in a Royal Army lab in Kent, where engineers in thick jumpers test new heating materials. Rubberized insulation, synthetic fill, and the first prototype of what would later be called the smart coil, a wire that adjusted heat based on resistance feedback. They called it responsive warmth. The name didn't stick, but the concept did. Stateside, the Red Cross begins issuing heated bedding to injured veterans. Public support grows as soldiers return home singing the praises of the warm blanket that didn't try to kill me. A welcome improvement. You visit a convalescent home in Boston, where a nurse demonstrates a new electric bed pad. Only one button, she says. And no sparks this time. Her tone is only half joking. The 1940s also see an uptick in medical endorsements. Doctors now recommend heated bedding for arthritis, circulation issues, and even emotional well-being. One pamphlet claims it can soothe the soul as it mends the sinew. You're not sure if that's poetic or pseudoscience, but you appreciate the effort. The technology advances quickly. By 1946, several companies offer dual-zone heated mattresses. Each side features its own switch, temperature range, and indicator light. One company even tests a timer function that pre-warms the bed 15 minutes before you climb in. It's hailed as the butler you don't need to tip. Meanwhile, in Japan, engineers take a quieter, more elegant approach. Traditional kotatsu, heated tables, are retrofitted with safe, low-voltage heating grids. Some even line futons with gentle electric mesh, hidden beneath layers of cotton. There are no ads, no fanfare. Just consistent warmth. In London, rationing limits the use of electric heating, but clever citizens find workarounds. One woman wires her bed warmer into the same line as her radio. If she wants heat, she must also listen to the BBC. The result? An entire generation that associates bedtime warmth with weather reports and cricket scores. Through it all, the electric bed warmer evolves from quirky comfort device to quiet caregiver. No longer the risky oddity of decades past, it's now something more intimate, trusted, familiar, dependable. You lie back in a field cot, stars peeking through the canvas above you. The heater hums beneath your blanket, warm but not hot. Safe. Controlled. A far cry from flaming brass pans and sparking prototypes. In the darkness of war, the soft glow of electric warmth becomes something almost sacred. You shift now to the gentle hum of post-war optimism. It's the 1950s, and everything seems new again: cars, clothes, televisions, and yes, even bed warmers. But they're not called that anymore. The modern era has arrived, and with it, the electric blanket, the sleek, humming, cotton-clad cousin of all the smoky, sparking relics that came before. You find yourself in a pristine American department store, its aisles glossy with polished tile and neon signage. On the third floor, just past toasters and blenders, is the future of bedtime, shelves lined with Suntherm, Dream Heat, the Cozy Current, and other glowing examples of what happens when engineering finally meets design. A smiling clerk in a crisp uniform gestures toward a heated blanket display with the enthusiasm of someone announcing the cure for Mondays. 3 heat levels. Washable lining. Safe for kids and pets, she chirps. One shopper leans close and whispers, "My neighbor's poodle won't sleep without one." You watch a demonstration of the Dual Heat Harmony Deluxe, featuring 2 independent heat zones and a detachable control module the size of a lunchbox. The pitch? No more arguing over the thermostat. Your side, your rules. By now, most homes, at least in urban areas, have reliable electricity. Safety standards have improved dramatically. Heat coils are insulated. Power cords are rubber-sheathed. Fuses and thermostats shut things down before anyone wakes up sweating or, worse, singed. Historians still argue whether the 1950s marked the perfection of electric bedding or just the beginning of its peak. Either way, it became an appliance as common as the refrigerator, standard in bridal registries, winter catalogs, and retirement homes. You peek into a Midwestern living room where a mother tucks her son under a soft, humming blanket printed with little astronauts. He smiles. "Feels like Jupiter," he says. "Warm and floaty." You smile too. It's a far cry from cherry pits and hot bricks. Electric bedding also becomes a point of pride in post-war Europe. In West Germany, one factory proudly stamps their blankets safe enough for the Chancellor. In England, one advert shows an older couple reading side by side in bed, the tagline, for those who've earned the right to comfort. Japan refines the idea further, embedding heating elements within foam-lined futons that warm evenly without detectable hotspots. They don't call them blankets. They call them beneath-breath warmth grids. It's poetic and accurate. Of course, not all trends land. You come across an unfortunate footnote in electric bedding history, the heated pillow phase. Yes, for a brief period, companies tried to market electric pillows. Soft, warm, neck-roasting pillows. It lasted all of 6 months. Turns out people don't like sleeping with their ears lightly grilled. Still, the progress is undeniable. A study in Good Sleep Keeping magazine, yes, that existed, claims that users of electric blankets report better rest, fewer complaints of morning stiffness, and significantly warmer marriages. You're not sure about that last part, but the sentiment's sweet. Even pop culture gets in on the trend. Sitcoms joke about dad sneaking into bed first to steal all the heat. Cartoon cats nap atop glowing blankets. Heated bedding becomes a sign not of wealth, but of wisdom. You end your night in a modest suburban bedroom. Twin nightstands, soft lighting, one of those wind-up alarm clocks ticking gently on the windowsill. Beneath the quilt, a low, even warmth pulses, steady, soft, safe. It took over a century to get here. A century of embers and wires, pamphlets and patents, fireproofing debates and voltage mishaps. But finally, at last, comfort without caution. Heat without hazard. Sleep without shiver. You sigh, letting the warmth surround you, and think, not for the first time, how lucky it is that someone was foolish enough to wire a bed. You stir once more and find yourself in the present day. The room is quiet, smart quiet. A soft, responsive hush, broken only by the faint whisper of a digital thermostat adjusting itself automatically. You're lying beneath a modern heated blanket, one with memory settings, Wi-Fi connectivity, and a microprocessor smart enough to know when you've dozed off. The wires are invisible now. The controls are touch-sensitive. And the fabric? So soft it feels like sleeping under a warm breath. You barely remember what it was like to dread climbing into bed on a winter night. Tonight, your mattress has 3 zones. The blanket tracks your body temperature. The base emits infrared warmth tuned to your sleep cycle. Some models even come with sleep tracking apps, telling you how many times you rolled over and whether your dreams ran hot or cold. In one Tokyo apartment, a woman swipes on her phone to preheat her bed while riding the subway home. In Sweden, a man programs his bedding to sync with the sunrise. In Oregon, an elderly couple chuckles as their blanket politely reminds them, "It's chilly tonight. Shall I warm your toes?" It's not just comfort anymore. It's design, it's data, it's experience. The electric bed warmer has become a wellness device, a sleep aid, a luxury lifestyle object with names like CloudTherm, Rest Halo, and Ember Nest Pro. Historians still argue whether these innovations are genuine leaps or clever packaging, whether today's heat comes from a deeper understanding of sleep science, or just better marketing. But one thing's clear, warmth has never been smarter, safer, or more quietly beautiful. And yet, the story hasn't really changed. You still climb into bed and seek that same old comfort. You still sigh when the chill lifts from your skin. And somewhere in the background, the ghost of a Georgian servant slides a brass pan under a feather mattress, smiling at how far we've come. You think of all the strange forms warmth has taken: hot stones, cherry pits, coiled wires, humming pads, mercury tubes, and asbestos linings. Every step, from smoldering embers to sleek microfibers, was a step toward this exact moment, you, safe and warm, drifting gently toward sleep. The electric bed warmer's legacy isn't just in the blankets or gadgets. It's in the quiet revolution of human stubbornness, the refusal to let winter win. It's in the 100-year pursuit of bedtime without dread. You settle deeper beneath the blanket. Your breathing slows. Your limbs sink. The warmth is even, effortless, familiar. A long journey, now a simple comfort. Wind down, 300 words. Now that we've traveled from coal-filled pans to intelligent, glowing quilts, it's time to let your mind drift even further. Let the details soften and fade, like footprints in fresh snow. Feel the warmth around you now, not the heat of invention or novelty, but the gentle, whispering kind. The kind that needs no explanation. The kind that hums just beneath your ribs and lulls your muscles into release. No sparks. No embers. No rattling coils or public demonstrations. Just this moment, this quiet hum of safety, of stillness, of warmth earned over centuries. You can almost imagine the faded brass bed warmer resting in some museum, tucked between forgotten gloves and dusty diaries. It waits there, content. Its job long done. The flickers of invention, so wild and weird, can rest too. And now, so can you. Let the hum fade into the hush. Let the softness wrap around your thoughts, turning them gently over, the way the first electric blankets turned cold into calm. You don't have to go anywhere. There's nowhere to be. No buttons to push. No coils to check. No wires to fear. Only warmth. Only rest. Only the quiet, unassuming gift of human comfort, at last, complete.